Good morning, it is time to begin. So, what we are going to do is briefly, because the title of the course is Explainable AI for Cyber Security. So, first day the way I thought, let us describe those two words, what is cyber security and what is explainable AI. So, all we are doing this whole day is defining two terms, and if you understood at the end of the day what those two terms mean from different perspectives, that we have done our job. So, first day we are basically going to talk about what is cyber security, or to be precise, what is cyber security landscape, and the way we are going to talk about briefly introduction, and then we are going to talk about what are the common weaknesses and common vulnerability. If you want to become a saint, the first thing you have to understand what is keeping you away from your sainthood. So, for attacks the similar analogy is what are the common weaknesses and what are the vulnerabilities. If you are thinking those two terms in dictionary, if you open it will look same, but then you have to think carefully. The people who are saint, they tried to got rid of 4 or 5 problems most people have, like they are interested in food. When they look at, if I am a guy, I am looking at a girl, I am attracted, all that stuff, or attracted to drugs, drinks, whatever it is, money, fame, not doing anything, becoming rich, whatever those weaknesses are, those are weaknesses. How it differs from vulnerability? If somebody is able to exploit that weakness and fool me, then that becomes a vulnerability. Example, you are getting all these spam calls to become rich quickly, all these Rose Valley and all that Sarda scam, they are trying to tell you they will give you double, triple, quadruple. None of us, even educated people, pause and think, how is it possible on earth? Bank gives you 4, 5, 10 whatever percent interest a year. How is it possible some magical association will give you 10%, 20% per month, when you know the agent is getting 20% cut, everybody is getting all. So, you give 100 rupees, eventually what gets deposited is 40 rupees, and you are getting like 10 times return, except in education, nowhere it is possible, and nothing is free. These two things somehow most people do not understand, that is why they fall for scam, then go to bank and either go to bank to tell I got scammed, or to go to the police force. They should not go anywhere, they should swallow their pride and greed. That is the weakness, that is the vulnerability. Another classical example is there are certain types of birds, they are very expensive in many countries, whether Amazonian rainforest in USA, but they are very rare to find. That is why those birds are expensive, meaning whether people are eating them or petting them, the way hunters hunt them, because those birds, like any human being, they are attracted to opposite sex. So, they all they need a whistle to play the whistle, which will produce the sound of a mating call, and that bird will come out thinking another opposite sex is calling, and that is it. It is their destiny, they will be killed. So, their weakness for attraction for mating become the cause of their despair. That is the vulnerability. Most parents know that, that is why they do not want you to do dating, they do not want you to do this or that, listen to them, but we think we know more than them, and we tell them hell with you. Either you are going to keep on lying to your parents, or you are not going to tell anything. But then when you become parent, then you realize the mistake, but by that time it is too late, and the story continues. You used to call your parents, you are backdated people, you do not know, your kids will tell you exactly same thing, just wait for that to happen. So, anybody has any question, because we are going to build everything on these two terms, weaknesses and vulnerabilities. And then we are going to talk about different types of attacks, software, firmware, hardware. That is what is today is the first hour. Now, the best way to, when we write proposals, we always have to tell why funding agency will give you money, you have to tell what it is, or you have to point them to the news, and okay, this happened. Anybody knows this particular news? It is from last year, controlling a car by a license plate. Anybody knows why that is possible? Because cars are designed, any car that you are driving today, that has been planned about 20 or 15 years ago, that got government approval, then they got manufactured, they came to the dealership, you bought it. Unless you have a habit of driving brand new car, it's going to get older. 10-20 years later you are going to sell it, somebody else driving it. Car has a long lifetime. Even if you design a security, that security would be like anybody can break it, even the baby not born yet, they can break that security. So, that is why it is so easy for the car. And as you go along, you will see many of those whatever news you see, you will be able to make sense out of it, and why it is so much easy. The world actually is friendly for attackers, world is not friendly for good people, it is friendly for attackers, liar, cheat, fraud, and I hate them, all of them, because that is exactly what they do. Politicians, they are the biggest fraud in the world. Religious leaders, gurus, they are the biggest fraud in the world. They play with your common weakness, and we are going to enumerate them. It's pure science. It's just that science I learned now. These science they know for eternity. All these people who can see your hand, put something on your hair, put bunch of rings. I just put that ring when my father passed away in honor of him. Putting all these rings and all that stuff, it's just a way to extract money from you, controlling your mind. That's the basically game. You respect somebody, that's wonderful, but in return of that respect or whatever you put on, you are going to get some miraculous stuff. That's bogus. That's basically this stuff. Basically you are letting you. And when you think of anything I teach, you will be thinking of human body as a computing device. If I can walk next to you, if I poke you, if I see how you react, I know how irritable you are, those are your side channels. That is exactly the scam artists do. They try to figure it out and then play with your weakness. So, when you think of computing devices, depending on which layer we talk about, different types of weaknesses and vulnerabilities are there. In these basically 10 days, we are primarily going to stay at the system level for most of it. I have one day on network related security, but most other day it's at the hardware software level, and one day about architectural spectre meltdown. We are not talking about here. That does not mean we do not have a problem. Actually, if you see the spectrum, the actually attacks and all that research, that is actually much bigger space I am not talking about. So, if any of you are from devices kind of background, then you might be thinking, well, this is not covered, because there are so many. For each type of technology there are different vulnerability. I will be happy to talk about them, but we will be covering in this space. Any of you have any questions about the scope of what you are going to cover, system level security or at most hardware architectural level security? But before we talk about security, I want to dispel one confusion. When you do banking transaction is going fine. When you type anything or you enter your credit card information, what do you see in that line in your browser? Okay, so when you have your browser, whether Firefox, whatever you use, when you type HTTP and all that stuff, what do we pay attention to when you are doing credit card transaction? We look for a character. What character is it? S, right? Anybody knows what that S stands for? Secure shell, right? Security. That is what the security in this context. If the word S is not there, you won't be comfortable entering your credit card information, right? Anybody knows what does that S do? What's the magic? Or in your Linux shell, when you do SSH, or anywhere when you open a virtual private network, all of them are same idea. What do you think it does in layman terms? In this class, everything will talk in layman terms. We won't get into buzzwords. What does it do? It does tunneling, right? It creates a, so if this is you and if this is I, and it could be bank, it could be you, but it creates a tunnel, some kind of secure tunnel where once you put the information in, this information goes here, nobody else can do anything on this side, that side, here, there. So, it creates a secure tunnel in some form. So, if secure tunnel is there, even before I am presenting this talk or you are listening to it, if it is working, When you are doing secure banking transaction, when was your credit card got stolen? Never. That information is not there. People steal information break, that we will talk about. So, if everything whole world is perfect, why are we creating this fake GAN course to talk about all this stuff? Why? Anybody knows why are we then talking about it? If everything is working fine, why do we need to talk about it? We need to talk about it because everything is actually not fine. It's just there is an animal called possum, and when anybody attacks possum, it either closes its eye, or if there is a sand or something, it hides its face. So, the idea of the possum is if I cannot see my attacker, probably my attacker cannot see me. That is the idea, because we do not know. So, this is a limit of stupidity, and that is basically I am trying to cover in this slide. Lot of information, but the key idea is that what we have, and that is I kept for one of the day, what we have is known as trusted execution environment or security enclave. So, if you are from computer architecture background, you know that you have. So, if you have 2 cores, 2 core, 4 core, does not matter, let us say, let us put 4 core, 4 processor core doing some application and some memory. So, this is core 1, core 2, core 3, core 4, and you have some memory. Then whether Intel SGX, AMD SEV, ARM Trust Zone, whatever those basic membrane that provides you security, it basically provides you a security enclave, little part of memory, and 1 core or some percent, actually statistically it is about 10% of the computing ability, it puts a tunnel around. To give you a tunnel, it also needs a secure tunnel, because the person who is digging the tunnel, if that person itself is vulnerable, then if your bodyguard's body is not stable, how can a bodyguard will protect your body? So, then that tunnel is just one of the core and little bit of memory, that is kind of secured from others. So, some program running on there, some program P1, another program P2, all these programs running, anything you are running, for example, this secure cell or VPN, whatever you are trying to run, anything happening here, other programs running in other core, although they are sharing some of the common devices, buses, networks, they should not be able to get a smell of it. That is the whole idea. Now, here are 2 problems with this idea. So, I want to show you the fundamentals itself are flawed. That is why the whole world is attacker's paradise. That is why gurus are doing so much of business. We are working hard, we do not have food to eat. The people who do nothing other than scamming, they have so much money. That is why people do not run to see a Nobel laureate or educated people when they go to their villages. Nobody ever came to see me. But if some idiot politician leader comes even remotely close to my village, thousands and millions of people will flock to meet them. So, that is fundamental flawed philosophy in society, is fundamental philosophy of what we believe is right, that itself is wrong. So, now if you go one more step below, let us assume that 10% of the cores that are secured is actually secure. First of all, that is also wrong. Let us assume that. Still 90% of the cores and memory, they are not protected. What will happen to them? All these ministers have bodyguards, we do not have any bodyguards. If somehow human values are not good enough, which is good in India, many other, you go to Brazil, people either have bulletproof door or they do not go to the street. You may not believe me, just go. If you come back, you may not come back to have this conversation. In many of these top cities, that is a serious problem, right? Because majority of the people are just out there to steal, and it is okay, that is the common concept. In fact, if you are stolen, people will not say sorry, people will say, what kind of person you did not go protection and went out to the street, right. So, it is a different culture, different philosophy. So, this 90% we have a serious problem. Now, that is about that, but even 10%, as we go along these 10-11 days, Professor Karfa will show from software perspective or compiler perspective, I will show from other perspective. Even there are published literature to show even this is under tremendous attack. And one of the attack conceptually I can explain you, that the idea of security enclave is either you are my friend or you are my enemy, the typical dictatorial philosophy. Either you listen to me, work with me, either you are with me or you are against me. That is the security enclave idea. The programs that is running within security enclave, they can trust each other, but they do not talk to the people outside the security enclave, like rich people do not talk to the poor people. But the thing is that what attackers do, that the things that are inside the security enclave, this processor, memory, the attacker actually pretend that I am your friend. They do many ways, again 10 days we will go through that. One of the way is just getting your login and password, and then I become part of it. But there are many other mechanisms to become part of that cult, like the spy of Indian spy in USA, US spy in India, that is what they do. I guess all of you are adults, when people sleep with each other, that is how they get information out. In fact, in American system, most of the security clearances, if you slept with somebody more than once, then you have to report it, otherwise that is a federal crime. It may seem so funny and vulgar, but that is the laws are, that is how laws are, otherwise your security clearance would be revoked if you do not do that. So, the idea is that either you are in or you are out. Attacker actually takes advantage of it, like the idea of honey trap and bribing and all that stuff. You are getting information from this security enclave. So, even this 10% is not secure, even your HTTPS is not secure. Then you may wonder, how come then when I do transaction things are going fine? Maybe that is a lucky day, you wake up on the right side of the bed, you do not have that much of money. In USA, if you hit somebody, some people will jump in front of your car. If you hit somebody, that person is going to make millions and millions of dollars just by being hit once. The way it works, again it is all scam. The way it works, you go to a lawyer and you say, okay, this person hit me and I think I am dead, right. Then the lawyer first thing checks how much money the person who hit you has, and then say, okay, I will do it for free, whatever we get, you 50%, I 50%. That is how it works. If you do not have any money, the lawyer has no motivation to take that case, and they will pretty much extract all the money, because there are doctors who will certify you are mentally retarded for rest of your life. They do not believe you can lead a normal life, and somehow they think you would have got a Nobel Prize, and that Nobel Prize would have got converted to some billions of startups, and it would have loss of billions of dollars for that person. Therefore, that person deserves at least $100 million in restitution and damages. So, it is complete scam, whole world is a complete scam, and all the advantages and laws in the name of victim are on that side. Any questions? Right. So, now that my whole idea of this discussion is to dispel the idea that things are secure, and therefore, we do not have to worry about it at all. Things are not secure, nothing is secure. Only reason nobody is attacking, they have no motivation, to attack you. It is not enough investment for them. Anybody has any question on this environment or the key idea, how all of this works? So, throughout these 10 days I am trying to zoom into each of them and talk about who is. So, for subsequent days we will assume this 10% actually works, which I am saying now that actually does not work. 10% works, how is it working, what components are working, then we will attack at the component level. But I wanted to give you the big picture where all of it is heading. I saw a hand somewhere. Yes, please. Oh, no, HTTP does not have its own Trojan. I can please it. HTTP does not have its Trojan. If you can have a Trojan, that is a different problem. HTTPS is implemented correctly, but it is just that the implementation itself has vulnerability. So, we will talk about on the cryptographic days I was planning to talk about it. Cryptographic algorithms have mathematical guarantees that even if you spend all the lifetime of the universe, you will not be able to break it. But when you implement it, some of those guarantees are gone. So, some of the guarantees relies on variables with infinite precision, but when you implement a variable, it is a 32-bit number, it is not infinite precision anymore. Or when you write a if statement, if A greater than B, and A and B happens to be a floating point number, one is becoming 14.999, another is becoming 15.0, then suddenly greater than less than equality becomes a problem. Even if numbers are equal, they may become a greater than or less than. Branch condition check, branch prediction, all those issues creates the vulnerability, and that becomes a problem. So, HTTPS implementation does not have any problem. That is why I will zoom into each of the component to show you the vulnerability. That is why I started with the example of sainthood. If we can get rid of all the weaknesses of normal human things, it is just that we know the weaknesses. Throughout this 10 days I will show you most of the attacks in computer systems are based on top 5 or 6 common known weaknesses, most common weaknesses people know. Most people die because of overeating, less people die because of hunger, but we know that eating food and eating junk, oily food, greasy food, we know that, but we still eat that. We still eat that. Yes, please.
Sir, like you just explained the concept of security enclave, and it seems common with a lot of things such as the firewall or the VPN, all are based on that concept.
Same idea. It built on that security guarantee.
Different paradigm of security than the security enclave.
No, all of those guarantees you talked about, they are built on this root of trust, and root of trust is basically the security guarantee.
There is no alternative.
No, there are no alternative. This is the architectural level guarantee you provide, and then everything SSN, VPN, SSH, anything you built on top of it, that is basically something user friendly idea, right. The analogy you can think of, most of our parents, or at least my parents taught, do not trust the strangers. Nobody told us be careful about your friends and the people inside the house. When you enter the house, you feel secure. That is the biggest danger. If you look at the statistics of rape, murder, all that, 70% of them are done by relatives, close friends, the people you know. Nobody taught us that actually be more careful about the people you know than the strangers, because when you go out, your antenna goes on, you try to be careful. When you are inside your house, you are relaxed, all your guards are down, that is when attacker attacks. So, it is all of them based on trust, and throughout these 10 days we will be trying to tell, actually your question is very interesting, we will be trying to show you that root of trust is actually not trustworthy. Even our antennas should be on even when you are at home. You should not trust even the people you know. Now, how the landscape is changing, I want to show you why it has become more and more attacker friendly. When I was doing PhD 30 years ago, it used to be kind of general purpose systems and then moving into slowly embedded devices. And now general purpose systems nobody care, IBM sold off their business and Lenovo bought it, you know all that story. So, now then it is kind of, then even embedded systems kind of became IoT, and that has all kind of challenges that is attacker friendly. I want to just touch upon one or two, why all these IoTs and smart house. So, it is all friendly feature, most of people ask for it. When I bought my house 10 or 15 years ago, I did not even have a choice, do I need home automation or not, it comes with that, you can't get rid of it. So, which is a good part, even with my phone I can open my front door. Being in India, somebody coming to my house, my friend, and I just click a button right here, those of you would be interested, I will be happy to demonstrate you. But a door will open. Now, if somebody can hack into my phone, they do not need a key, they can open my door, get in, steal whatever they want, they can control everything there. When I bought the TV, I did not know my TV is recording me. A TV is supposed to show me something, it is not supposed to take my picture and do all that stuff, whatever it is doing, right. So, this automation is great, user friendly, but it comes with that. So, the thing is, the objective of a cyber security researcher is how do we minimize vulnerability of diverse complex computing systems to malicious attacks. And any of these devices, no matter how small and cool and friendly they look, they have billions of transistors, millions of lines of code. As you go along, you will see, forget about millions, even verifying 10 lines of code that there is no vulnerability is a difficult proposition. I downloaded a calculator because he did not like the original calculator I came with in the app, and in the installation process it asked me, do you want the calculator to access your contacts? And I was scratching my head, what the calculator has to do with my contacts? Then something occurred to me, and my phone has no more apps, or at least the apps that I can delete. The system does not allow me. That if somebody has the audacity to ask me, can I access your contact, it probably accessed my contacts already. So, the idea is the complexity and the stuff going on, most of us do not know, most of us do not care, and that is where all these problems starts. And then things become complicated if you think of, so this is, I think the Dresden is the first country where everything got connected. So, I mean sometimes in many advanced countries that is there, many city decided all the buses runs through, you can download an app and then it will show you which bus is here, it is all friendly. So that when you are standing in the bus stop, you know which bus is coming where, when you are connecting multiple buses, it is everything all known, real time, not the fixed posted schedule, real time you exactly know which bus, which train, where is where. But the problem is if an attacker can break one of the link, then it basically it can put the whole city into shutdown mode. So, you get certain advantage then, but when there is a connectivity it becomes problem. So, as I go along, I will show just one more slide. 30 years ago any product you design 3 to 4 years. So, verification was 1 year time. Now today everything is less than a year. iPhone when get released every year. So, every design has exactly 1 year, and things are like 1000 times, million times more complex, billions of security vulnerabilities, nobody has time to verify, and then basically you have all these problems plus you have no time to verify. So, that is why it is an attacker's paradise, that is why we see all these problems. Now, if I keep saying this, you might be thinking, okay, I know there is so much problem, how does it help me, can I solve it? You can't solve it. The way it helps, if you can lock your car in your parking lot, you are already doing a great stuff, because there are idiots out there, they will not lock their door, and unless the thief is also idiot, which is most of the time that is the case, nobody will try to break into car if there are bunch of car doors that are already open. Or if you have IoT devices in your house, it comes with factory default password, which I can break even sitting here. That is illegal, but I can still do it. So, nobody even bothers when you get a router or whatever for your house, nobody even bothers to change that factory default password. First of all, it is not the same password for every device, but I kind of know how those factory default passwords are generated. I know they are unique number, but I know how they get generated. But if you create your own password, that is difficult for me to guess unless I have already known 1 or 2 of your passwords. So, one cybersecurity expert from IIT Kharagpur was sitting next to me, we are going for VLSI design conference. So, I basically said, I can break into anybody's phone. He said, there is no way, here is my phone. So, I just looked at him, by the time I smiled, I broke into his phone and opened and gave it to him. And of course, you can guess who this professor is, but the thing is, professor said, how did you do it? I said, there is a basic rule in magic, you never say it, because even if I say it, your inquisitiveness will not end, it will only increase. No, I do not believe that, I am not going to ask you any more question. I said, promise? The person said, pinky promise, that promise. I said, okay, just turn the phone little bit towards the light angle and it will show you the oily change of whatever pattern you created. I just looked at, I twisted, looked at that pattern, I just did the slide. I had to try twice or thrice by the time I smiled, because I did not know whether you tried this way or that way. I had to just figure that out. Oh, I could have cleaned that surface and gave it to you then. I said, you promised me you will not ask me the next question. So, because even if I explain that how that would be broken, oh, then if I do that, it does not matter, it does not matter, it is attacker's paradise. Any question so far? Now, so to add to that complexity, there are fake devices, that is also attacker friendly, and these are from my sponsor. So, this is a genuine versus fake Canon whatever thing, and it is very difficult to figure out which one is genuine and which one is fake. It pretty much looks the same, and this is genuine versus fake Cisco router. Actually, the fake one actually looks much better, because some of the printing was very nicely done. and in the genuine one there are some discontinuity, and then this is from the genuine from Honda car, they are basically the PCB, the main motherboard controller. So, pretty much every device you are carrying, it has fake stuff. So, it should not be a surprise to you that Israel is able to so peacefully pull that pager attack. It is pretty much everything you use, it has stuff. It just nobody is pulling the trigger off because you are not worth their time and effort and legality and hassle. But if you become famous, if you have lot of money, be careful, you will be under attack. So, I can go on and on and on, but now I want to go to the fundamentals of weaknesses and vulnerability. That is where I have started. Security research, if you want to start, this is where you start. I have one problem, whenever I talk about something or somebody, I talk very highly, as if whole world is about security. In the after lunch, when I talk about explainable AI, I will give you a feeling, do not work in any other domain, explainable AI is the only thing. So, you have to forgive me for that, because if I marry somebody, I have to say, do not tell this to my wife, I have to say she is beautiful, that is the ground truth. So, anything, that is one way to look at. Second thing is, I cannot do research, invest time and energy if I do not feel strongly about it. You have two ways of going about it. I am working in this area, or wow, I am working in this area. Fooling yourself is not cheating, fooling somebody else is bad. I can fool my mind. Happiness is a state of the mind. Being happy does not need even a single paisa. You do not need money to be happy. In fact, converse is actually not true, it is actually dangerous. But so, let us get into these weaknesses and vulnerabilities, and let us see it got from here. The way you want to start security research is basically by going through, I will zoom into this. There are websites maintained by US National Institute of Standard and Technology in collaboration with Mitre Corporation, and they maintained all the weaknesses and vulnerabilities known as of today. If today you do a research, find a vulnerability, there is a reporting mechanism, I will briefly walk through, and then it would be catalogued. If you publish a paper, it would be catalogued. If there is a security vulnerability somebody found and you found a defense for it, that would be catalogued. So, right way to start. When I started on research, I did not know this is the place to start, because I realized my mistake. That is why the first lecture I am telling you, this is where to start. First you figure out what research you are doing, you go there. So, the firmware itself has 6,000 vulnerabilities. So, there are 6,000 attacks has been reported on firmware, and most of you probably never seen or touched a firmware. Maybe this is the first time in this lecture you will zoom into it. So, such an unknown thing has 6,000 known different types of vulnerabilities. And then here I am showing some data set. You can generate any kind of picture or out of it, that how many software only. I am only looking at electronic system vulnerability. If you are looking at mechanical and all that stuff, airplane and different other parts, sensor and all that, then there would be more. So, in that you are kind of looking at, in this talk we are primarily focusing on hardware plus software kind of thing in this talk, but no matter how you look at it, different types of weaknesses it is kind of looking at and then creating vulnerability. But so, as I said, there are two web pages. One is let me see, did I give the web pages to you? No, one is, let me write it down, I thought I did. So, there are two kind of weakness, the two web pages, that is important. One is HTTPS and all that stuff, one is common weakness enumeration.org, that is the list of all the weaknesses, and that is where you want to start, and then common vulnerability enumeration.org. If you want to be a saint, we exactly know what are those 5 or 6 the weaknesses normal human being have, you exactly know 5 or 6. But here the list is little longer. I remember, I do not think it is 5 or 6, I think it is 500, 600, but that is a still small number. And as I said, most of the vulnerabilities, hundreds of thousands of vulnerabilities are based on, again it is in the order of tens or order of hundreds, but most of the vulnerabilities are that like top 5 to 10 vulnerability. If electronic systems you can design and those vulnerabilities are not there, that is pretty reliable and stable electronic system. Same human being, those 5 whatever, anger and greed and whatever you guys know, right, those common 5 things, all those 5 things you get rid of. There may be other things, it is okay, it is not a problem. You are not open to attack by scammers. It is good for you, good for your health. You will live longer, live younger, live happier, you do not have to see a doctor or psychiatrist. Any question on this? Because these two are very important website. Of course, there are other companies maintaining it also. As far as I know, there is US government also has a national vulnerability database. I am pretty sure every country, even India, might have such thing. ISEA might have maintained some websites, does not matter, but that is the starting point. Any website you want to go, that is the starting point, instead of start reading random papers. Yes, please.
What is the difference between weaknesses and vulnerability?
Yes, so the weaknesses and vulnerability. So I enjoy food. In the lunch time you will figure out if you have, I enjoy food. I do not eat too much, but just I enjoy it, love it, right. And if my attacker knows that I have that vulnerability, that I have affinity or weakness towards food, then basically they will do a poisoning attack on me. If they want to kill me, then they will invite me for a nice dinner, lunch, coffee, whatever, and then they will basically put poison on it. So putting poison or trying to kill me, that is the vulnerability or successful. And in the security domain, weakness and vulnerability, that is the difference. Weakness is there is something we are doing that is open to attack, but nobody attacked yet, right. So but the vulnerability, somebody actually used it to mount an attack, that is the distinction. And the example of a bird I took, that bird basically has affinity to mate with a so this is basically male bird who basically hides, very rare to find, and then basically playing that whistle. That's weakness is it thinks there is a mate available, let me try my chance, and will come out from hiding to the open field, and when hunter will shoot, when hunter shoots, that is a vulnerability for that bird. But the idea that the whistle with that sound as if some female is calling him, that is the weakness. If the bird did not have a weakness, it will never come out to open. What do you think? The very idea, instinct that it is hiding, it knows that if I go out, some hunter will hit me, hunter or some tiger or somebody will kill me, it knows that. But on that weakness moment, people lose all their senses. Okay. Any questions, more question on CW or CR? Those two websites would be a good starting point, very good starting point. Yes, please.
Sir, when we are talking about weaknesses, are we just talking about machine level weaknesses, or just the like the thing that we are talking about, the human mind weakness?
No, human mind I am just taking as an analogy. In this class I am not talking about any human mind, I am just connecting so that it is easier to understand. I am only talking about computer system weaknesses in this class, specifically electronic system, software, firmware and hardware. Those 3 things we are going to focus. We are not going devices level, we are not talking about politicians and all that stuff. That might be a different thing, different days, and I am not an official expert on those. I am a victim of those stuff. Okay. So now weakness is the most important thing. But then the common vulnerability, cv.org, so basically it enables people to have a same conversation, because it got categorized. When you say vulnerability, side channel attack and all that stuff, everybody in the world knows what does that mean. Because of this website exists and categorization, everybody talks in the same language. And it basically, if you want to report whatever vulnerability you find, this is the kind of step you take. You discover some vulnerability when you are doing research, you make an attack and say, wow, I am able to break into this device. Of course, you first go to that website, you see if somebody else also attacked or found similar stuff. If not, you report to this company, and then you may kind of request them that oh, give me a CV number, they check it, and there is a long process. That is one way. Or whoever device you are able to break, let us say some smart thermostat, smart bulb, something you are able to attack, let us say it is manufactured by Sony, you contact the Sony cybersecurity department, and then they either come back, they will come back. These days people are serious about it, because I remember one of the company, Nest, I think Nest thermostat used to have biggest market share. One of my colleague Ergin found the vulnerability, reported them, They never got back, and he went and published, and basically that company pretty much, I do not know whether it exists now, they are gone pretty much in the eternity. Now most companies have at least 1 or 2, 3 security people dedicated who will look at what vulnerability you found, then they will probably request you give us 6 months or 1 year, do not publish, and we will try. Then once they validate and return back to you, you can publish, and they will also report to CV and the category will be created, but whichever way. And if you are a researcher or professor, these days publishing in top places, security places, NDSS, CCS, Usenix, they kind of expect you found some vulnerability and CV got created. If not, does not matter what you have, they will reject it. So I am not supportive of that idea, but somehow it kind of assumed if you say you found you are able to attack something, then how come there is not a CV against it? Why did not take that extra step? You did so much of work and spent 6 months, 1 year doing the research. Why did not you take those extra time to create the CV and get it out of the system? Now what I wanted to show you now, for any device, all human being, most secure and protected device is your smartphone. We can offline talk how unsmart is to carry a smartphone. Your near and dear one can track you. If you are going drinking, boozing, gambling, whatever, they can trace you. And because near and dear one is probably not your attacker, an attacker can track you too. And of course most of the guys put their phone on their pocket, and then if you are young enough, you may not be able to produce a baby, take it from me. The amount of radiation companies will always tell you is not healthy enough, it is not. If you put next to your head and sleep, you will go crazy soon. Now most of the research has not been done, and if 30, 40 years later research is done, you cannot go back in time and move that smartphone away from you. But that is a different discussion. Today's discussion is even that smartphone, which is the most secure device for any normal people like us. If people from defense and all that, they might interact a lot more secure devices than this. For us, this is the most secure device. I want to show you how unsecure it is. Depending on what level access I have to your phone, whether you are downloading my app or whether your without your permission, your machine learning tool is downloading a model or upgrading its model from the cloud, or whatever happens, each of this place, even the idea that your device has some debug port and you can access those debug ports, even that is a mount to attack, and we will talk about that zoom in. Cloud access, sometimes you access knowingly, you go to your Google Drive and all that stuff, and everybody will tell you they are secure. Cloud will say they are secure. Communication, your Verizon, AT&T, whatever services you use for communication, Jio, Airtel, whatever, they will say they are secure. You might be saying, if everybody is secure, how come this is happening? And that is a common human psychology. I am not making it dramatic like Bollywood movie. I never had a tea, I never did this, I never did that, how come this happened to me? I heard this like millions of times. Where is it written in religious scripture that life is fair or world is fair? Where is it written? Show it to me. Nowhere it is written. So that basically means that all of this stuff everybody calling secure, they actually do not know what they are talking about. They have no idea. And basically that causes problem. Even the idea, now networking level, I have one day because of Dole or whatever break Dr. Karpal will talk about, I do not know whether I will get time, then I will talk about even the knowledge of this, you can mount lot of attacks. Even as silly as how much battery is left on your device, I can mount certain type of attack, just knowing how much battery is left on your device. Any information can be used against you, any information. In fact, US has something called Miranda law. Anytime anybody arrests somebody, first thing the cop will say, you have right to remain silent, anything you say will be used against you. Unlike in India, they will harass, torture, extort, make you sign on some form. So any information I can get from your device, it can be used to attack. How much successful? Do I need little more information, less information? But I am just trying to show you even the smartest device that each of us hold, most secure device, is utterly insecure. Utterly insecure. Not using it would be the smartest choice you can make. Any questions? Now, I am going to take few example of different types of attack just to give kind of close this discussion. Software level attack, and we have days dedicated for this. There are whole day dedicated for just for malware. Malware basically stands for malicious software, it is abbreviation malware, and then there are tons of them. Most of you probably more famous with ransomware, that is a class of malware, ransomware attack, and they will lock your file, then ask for payment in cryptocurrency, otherwise they will not unlock, and if you did not get a ransomware attack, that basically means you are not rich enough. Either you are not rich enough or somehow you are good to hide how rich you are. Biggest mistake people do is wear expensive clothes and show off to the people. This is a bad idea. Actually, more rich you are, you try to show you are extremely poor. Nobody would be interested, people would be sniffing at, feel sorry for you, stay away from you. From a cybersecurity perspective, that is a great idea, to be humble. Actually, that is a good thing from a religious scripture also. Being humble, being respectful, being poor. Donating all your money would be the ideal thing, but some people cannot handle money. But because of that, it is not surprise 70% of organizations experienced type ransomware attack, they paid ransom, some of them report lot of data. We will zoom through this, we will zoom into this on the day on ransomware. There are different types of malware, we will basically talk about those, and if any of you are interested, we will play those ransomware from my computer to your computer, just to get just for fun, how to get everything from your laptop into my laptop. But I need your explicit permission on a piece of paper, you are not going to sue me, just to show you how much easy it is. I do not even have to fold my shirt, and just piece of cake. Anything you have, if I can do it, anybody can do it. So that is why hiding information is a bad idea. If you want to hide information, put it in the broad daylight, nobody would be interested in that to know. If you have a girlfriend, say it boldly, your parents would not be interested. If you are doing hush push, you are in trouble. Okay, so this one is my favorite one, this is one of the ransomware, and this attack and hundreds of millions ransom later, it turned out that US National Security Agency knew about this vulnerability. So, Windows operating system had a vulnerability, these attackers from Russia used that vulnerability to mount the attack, and they extracted hundreds of millions of dollars. Later it turned out National Security Agency knew about it. Now, my question to you is, if US National Security Agency knew about this vulnerability, why did not they inform Microsoft or Bill Gates to fix this vulnerability and waited for Russia to exploit this vulnerability, mount the attack, and took a tons of money from 3 school districts and 1 bank, I do not know, 100 million, 1 billion, I do not care. Why did you think National Security Agency did not tell Microsoft that there is a vulnerability? Yes, please.
They have their own vested interest in it.
They have their vested interest. In fact, later it was published, National Security Agency was using that vulnerability for spying on US citizens, that is the part freaked everybody, as well as people in other countries. Everybody was using Windows operating system those days. It was from, vulnerability was there from 2010 to 2017, they were using it for spying on everybody. On everybody. One day I became crazy, I was looking at my Dell system, Dell computer, I tried to go chip by chip what it is doing. There are like 5 or 3 chips I could not figure out, nobody knows. So, after pager attack everybody got surprised, I did not get. There are bunch of chips somebody is inserting somewhere in the supply chain and nobody knows, including Dell, they do not know where those came from, and pretty much your computer will have same thing too. I do not think I am that famous or important just to have an individual, and every computer has that stuff, just logging data, transmitting data. firmware attack. Now this is the first time I am going to introduce you to firmware. How many of you know firmware or played with it or seen how it looks? Black or white or brown or yellow? None of you? Okay, so first of all we still have systems, so the C for the thing. Let me just zoom on to car, all of you will be able to relate to it. In a car, if I zoom in, you will have lot of module, probably the cruise controller would be the one you would be able to relate more. So you basically set your cruise and whatever speed you are in, it will try to maintain that speed. The word adaptive will say if it is a upslope, maybe it has to increase its fuel injection to maintain the speed. If it is a down slope, it has to reduce. While it is doing it, there is a car comes in front of it, it has to slow down because you requested maintain a cruising speed of 80 kilometer per hour. It would probably not do that because your safety is important, that is why it will slow down. So if I zoom into this cruise controller, so then basically you will see what is happening. So you have sensors and actuators. Sensors are basically going to measure distance between the car, current speed and braking distance, and then firmware will convey that information to operating system, then some applications running that is basically figuring out all this stuff, and then information percolates through and then braking action will happen if needed. Either fuel injection would be reduced, that is also actuation. So this whole sensing, actuation, data getting transferred between application through operating, that is the firmware. If in layman terms, firmware is nothing but software. It is written in one of the programming languages. It could be little proprietary language, but it is still like C, Java, whatever it is. But it is just that the way they are written, the way they are maintained is slightly different. Those of you know the whole manufacturing process. Most of you, those who work in application, you do not care about anything because you assume operating system is completely reliable, it will take care of it. As we go along, we will figure out that is not true. The person who is supposed to protect you, that person itself is vulnerable. So then firmware, there are different ways of thinking. Think of a BIOS. When a computer is manufactured, inside the way you have processor memory, little bit of program, compiled program also get manufactured right then and there and sealed. You can't do hanky panky with it. So whenever you install operating system first time, then that operating BIOS will check, is it a legitimate operating system or an attacker trying to fake as I am from company, all these signature check, all that check, that is what BIOS does with the help of the hardware, the tiny thing that got installed. So it is slightly, it is a software, but it is the way it is managed, and then when you want to change the BIOS, that is even more interesting. You are like checking about yourself. It is like I was a bad person, today I decided to become a good person. So you decided you want to be a good person, you know you are a bad person. Now the behavior you are picking up, you are checking, are those behavior good enough? Should I eat less sugar, less sweets? So this BIOS itself will check the new BIOS update coming in, is it legitimate or somebody faking, trying to get access. So there is all these stuff, and the day I talk about firmware security, I will zoom in. So that way firmware, the way it is designed, the way it kept, the way it managed, the way it updated, it is all different from typical software. So firmware, because of the name, do not think it is like little farm, not soft, not hard, little farm, it is not that. And many times when you have a hardware bug, you can't modify hardware. So then you do firmware changes in firmware, so that either you can fix the bug or hide that bug, that is called firmware patching. Right. When there is a new security vulnerability, you will get auto update, oh there is a security update needed, that is actually a firmware upgrade most of the time. Sometimes that could be operating system upgrade too. Any questions? Yes, please.
So is firmware a software model can replace a hardware model?
Sorry, can you little louder please?
If we have a system and we put some firmware module in it at the place of some hardware model, can it work?
So you are saying, so first of all I did not show the hardware here, you are saying
Yes,
instead of a hardware block, can I put a firmware block?
yeah, at the place of that hardware module. If we have required
We can always do that. In fact, you can have whole system, in today the speed of processor is so much, you can have whole system running only on software, you still be able to maintain your real time. In fact, many embedded devices, you do not have operating system.
So sir, which one we more
So, hardware is less vulnerable than firmware, software is most vulnerable.
So why we prioritize than firmware if it is more vulnerable?
We do not prioritize firmware, it is a flexibility. Hardware is impossible to change or modify after I sold and it is in the deployment. Software is very easy and flexible, firmware is in the middle. The idea of firmware is basically think of something between software and hardware in terms of flexibility, modifiability and all kind of guarantees, it is somewhere in the middle. And again wait for the firmware day to get into the zoom. Now the finally the hardware attack, basically we are going to talk about system on chip. So in the days 20-30 years ago 1990s, if we used to have all these big computer, you open it up, there is something called motherboard and you have everything on top of that printed circuit board known as motherboard. You have processor, you have memory, controller and all that. Today all of those motherboard got shrink into one integrated circuit, that is all is known as system on chip. Yes please.
So nowadays like mobiles or laptops they give 2 year or 3 year software updates. After the beyond that they don't give. So what is the reason behind? Beyond that, is there a chance that they can be hacked or?
So very interesting question. Most companies give 2-3 year upgrade and unless you buy. In fact, even if you want to do no matter what, even companies like Apple, they charge so much premium, after 6 or 7 years they do not give any upgrade. So basically they want you to buy a new phone. It is in their business model, it does not make sense to support so many versions of operating system, that is one way to think about it. And some phones are so reliable, it may last for 10-15 years. How are they going to give $500 million salary to their big CEOs and all that? It is not possible. Their profit sharing, stock and all that. So they want you to get rid of your phone as soon as possible. So that is the business model side. Other side is it is very impossible to maintain so many versions of the phone in so many markets, so many operating systems, so many firmware, it becomes impossible for them. They have limited number of groups developing those patches. Now each of the patch modification they have to test on all these computers, all these phone setups. It becomes unmanageable. So somebody in the company made that decision. That is the 3-year decision. And the basic premise I want to break, even for those 3 years you are not protected. I want you to know that and believe it. You are thinking after 3rd year my phone is not protected, even those 3 years it is not protected. Very simple way to prove that is that when a patch comes in, that means they know there is a vulnerability and most of the time it is not identified by that company, some other company, some other hacker, CV got created, then they developed the patch. So there was this window of opportunity when attacker attacked it, when they put the patch in, that time anything can happen and you won't know you were attacked until long time later and it is too late anyway. So these IP and Dr. Karfa is also talking about it, and this I am going to zoom in later, it is already 12:30. So I am going to just fast forward. One thing I want to tell you, even the system on chip which is I am going to discuss in this lecture was in this technology of 1970. I am one of the contributor of Semiconductor Research Corporation Electronic Advanced Packaging Roadmap, what is going to happen in the future. It is a 1970 and when I am writing, contributing to this and developing this, I realized and I got confused really. So we have serious problem with 1970s technology. Now think of what is happening today, heterogeneous integration from multiple fab, the vulnerabilities are just numerous, attackers paradise. And we are going to talk about lot of types of attack. One of the day is dedicated for hardware Trojan and other stuff also I will talk the day we talk about hardware security related problems. And even if you can zoom in and one of the chip says the name of that chip, it says trust me, don't. So that is basically the conclusion. So basically there are lot of security vulnerabilities. So whether the software, hardware, firmware, there are application specific attacks and so then in the afternoon we are going to talk about how do we use machine learning to kind of defend against attack. But before I talk about how we can defend, we will zoom into whole afternoon is dedicated to zoom into machine learning. So I will start with very basic like going back 30-40 years at the beginning of the machine learning what are those stuff in layman terms, how does it work, and I am not getting get into this probability statistics, although that is the base of machine learning. I will not get into, I will not even put a single equation. I will build that. Once we have that background, then I will build on top of it. So, how machine learning is basically different names, zero shot learning, reinforcement learning, adversarial learning, what are these buzzwords mean? Once those are covered, then I will get it about explainability. So, explainability will come, and when that is done, then in the afternoon I am done with explainable AI. Thank you, have a wonderful lunch.